In 1955, Martin earns his graduate degree. He gets married. He and his new wife, Coretta, move to Montgomery, Alabama, where he takes a job as a Baptist minister.
At the time, Montgomery is a very segregated city. It is run by a racist white government with terrible Jim Crow laws. For instance, blacks are only allowed to sit in the back of buses. And even in the back, they must give up their seats to whites if there are no other seats available.
One day on a crowded Montgomery bus, a brave black woman named Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat to a white man. She is arrested and thrown in jail.
Martin is in his office when his friend Edie Nixon calls to tell him about the arrest.
Martin, we have taken this treatment for too long. Mrs. Parks is going to challenge her conviction in court. That's not enough. We must take action. It's time to boycott the Parks.
Martin realizes he must now put his theories of nonviolence to the test. He is elected president of the boycott committee. A few nights later, he leads a mass meeting to kick off the boycott.
We are here this evening to say to those who mistreated us for so long that we are tired of being segregated and humiliated, tired of being kicked about by the brutal feet of oppression.
Martin reminds his spellbound crowd how important it is to remain nonviolent during the boycott. Then he wraps up his speech.
If we protest courageously and yet with dignity and Christian love, when the history books are written in the future, somebody will have to say there lives a race of people, of black people, of people who had the moral courage to stand up for their rights. And thereby they injected a new meaning into the veins of history and civilization.
The boycott is off to a great start. Almost all of Montgomery's black citizens stay off the buses, but it's difficult. People soon grow tired of walking long distances to work.
Carpools are started, and black taxi companies charge only the bus fare to drive boycotters to work. But still, most people need to walk.
Martin speaks at meetings twice a week to inspire troops.
Our campaign is not against individuals, but against the forces of evil in the world. And if there is a victory, it will be a victory not merely for 50,000 black people, but a victory for justice and forces of life.
At one meeting, Martin receives an urgent message.
Martin, your house has been bombed.
Martin rushes home. There's a huge crowd on his lawn. The porch has been blown off his house.
Where are my wife and baby?
We're right here, Martin. We're both safe.
A large crowd of black neighbors gathers outside, furious that someone tried to kill their leader. Some of them had guns.
Where is Dr. King?
I want to know who did this to Dr. King.
Finally, Martin realizes that only he can keep this from turning into a riot. He goes outside and holds his hands up to fight the crowd.
My wife and baby are all right. I want you to go home and put away your weapons. We cannot solve this problem through violence. We must meet hate with love.
Finally, the crowd leaves peacefully.
The boycott drags on for nearly a year. The national news media cover it heavily and make Martin a star.
Anti-black violence rises. Martin himself receives up to 40 death threats a day, but the boycotters remain nonviolent.
Soon, Martin's close friend, Ralph Abernathy, tells him of another problem.
The city is claiming carpools are illegal. They may be able to shut them down.
That night at dinner, Martin talks sadly to Coretta.
If they stop the carpooling, we're done. Our people have been suffering through this boycott for almost a year. How can I tell them it just got harder? I'm afraid it might be over.
Martin, as long as I've known you, you've been able to do the impossible. Somehow, you'll do it again. I know.
On November 13, 1956, almost a year after the boycott began, Martin is in court for the judge's ruling in the carpool.
The court finds in favor of the city, hereby in favor of the city, the illegal carpool is ordered to shut down and the protest group is forced to pay a fine of $15,000.
Martin is in despair. It is all over. But moments later, an amazing thing happens. Martin is approached by a reporter.
Did you hear? The Supreme Court has struck down the Montgomery bus segregation law.
During the boycott, Rosa Parks and her lawyers had fought the arrest and conviction all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, the court has ruled that Montgomery bus segregation is against the Constitution. Martin and the Montgomery boycotters have won.
That night, a huge crowd assembles at Martin's church. They scream and cheer as Martin takes the podium.
We must not take this as a victory over the white man, but as a victory for justice and democracy. In the past, we have sat in the back of the buses, and this has indicated a basic lack of self-respect. It shows that we have thought of ourselves as less than men. On the other hand, the white people have sat in the front and thought of themselves as superior. Both approaches are wrong. Our duty is going back on the buses is to destroy the superior-inferior relationship. It is our duty to act in the manner best designed to establish man's oneness.
Through his nonviolent resistance movement, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went to lead and win most of the major battles of the civil rights movements. In 1964, he won the Nobel Prize for Peace. He was arguably the most important American in the 20th century.
King's I Have a Dream speech given at the 1963 March in Washington is one of the most beloved speeches in American history.
King was killed by an assassin's bullet on April 4, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. He was only 39 years old.